You know it's time to do it major. Here's to the hustlers, the movers and shakers. Get up on your grind, don't let the haters get ya. I know that you got a vision, now it's time to deliver. Yeah, giving you the tools, helping you to grow. Level up, time to shine like you never did before. Let them know, more than a podcast, it's a mindset. You can do anything, you just gotta keep grinding. Let's go. The entrepreneur adventure. Hey, the entrepreneur adventure. You ready?
We are back on the Entrepreneur Adventure podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the most important thing in your business right now. We're in an environment right now with business where we are struggling to find people to hire to be able to scale our business. But you know what's way more important than finding people to hire? It is keeping your best people. If you lose a key component or an employee right now, you're in real trouble as a business. We're going to find out how to keep our best people. Welcome to the podcast today, Cindi Filer. Thanks for joining us.
So a lot of people are like, well, my people are fine. You know, it's no big deal. If people leave every once in a while, it doesn't really matter. There's this book called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. It's one of my favorites. It will put you to sleep at night. I'm kidding. It's just good. But I encourage all my business owners to read it because it is a great tool to show the data and the empirical data on how companies that have focused their attention on these issues we're about to talk about in retention and hiring fare so much better from a profit standpoint than companies that don't. And it is clear. And so it takes two companies in the same industry at the same period of time, and it shows how one focused on their employees and one didn't. And the one that did made so much more money. So for those entrepreneurs out there that are like, hey, I make this widget, I do this service, I love what I do, the people thing, it'll just take care of itself. Well, the studies show, and this data shows that if we do the things that we're about to talk about, that we'll actually make more money. We'll get to make more widgets, we'll get to sell more services, right? Because we've taken care of our people. So that's why it's important. Even if you don't want to tell that great story to that employee about this is where you were and this is where you are now, and I want to be there to help you. Maybe you don't want to be that person. If you just want to be the I want to make more profit person, then you should do these things too. Right. So there is a reason. So every time I speak, I talk about that because otherwise human resources just looks like, oh my God, I got to fill out that form. Right. But if we knew that the things that we did actually will impact our bottom line positively or negatively, we would probably spend more time doing it. Right. And that kind of leads to, you know, to me, the biggest determination point about whether employees are engaged or not. That's the term, right? That's how we keep our people. Are they engaged? Do they feel like when they're at our company that they understand their work, they like their work, they like the environment, they like the people that they work with, and they feel they're making a difference? And that's the definition of employee engagement, right? And so there's all these studies and all these tests out there that'll give you your employee engagement scores and that kind of thing. But we can find out, like, how engaged are your employees? And the number one way that employees get engaged, there's this great book called It's the Manager, and that's the definition. It's the manager, right? The direct supervisor, the manager, is the number one reason people are engaged or not engaged at their work. It's amazing. And why are managers so bad at being managers? It's because I'm 55 now. Oh gosh, and now I'm 55. But the management training programs died back when I was young, right? Because we stopped having money for them and everything else. So nobody went through leadership training, supervisor training, those kind of things died. And so we have forgotten how to manage and lead people. Nobody has taught people how to do that. And so I think that's where the rub is, because we're expecting our supervisors and our managers who have never had any training doing this to be great supervisors and managers, right? And yeah, it's like, you know, having you be an accountant and getting judged on your accounting if you've never been to accounting school. That doesn't make any sense, right? So we need to really train our managers how to manage. And that's the biggest thing we need to do. And so to be a great manager, they have to be self-aware. They have to have, high emotional quotient. They need to love their people more than just what their people can do for them. And the studies have shown that the people that work for great managers, they're over 40% more engaged than people that don't. And the number one reason people leave their companies and decide to go to a different company is because of their manager.
It's interesting. So I personally, and my team can tell you, probably a month ago, I don't like the term manager because I don't think anybody hears the word manager unless they're being promoted and they're becoming a manager. Like that's when it's like, oh, it's a fun sounding word then. But if anybody ever says my manager, it's very rarely spoken of with like regard. That's like, we're not saying manager anymore. You're not a area manager, you're an area leader, because I expect you to be a leader. Management seems so status quo to me, like leader doesn't seem that way. So just trying to change some of the corporate language on our side to try to speak into people being leaders. But I would say this, Cindi, is that I think that I know for me personally, if in people that are leaders on my team, I can see what I believe to be good leadership and maybe leadership sometimes that isn't as good. But knowing how to get somebody from where they are to that spot is what's difficult for me. So I'm like, man, I can recognize good leadership, but I can't always walk somebody to that development piece.
Can we not only walk somebody to that development piece, we have took really amazing employees and made them horrible managers, just totally wrecked their career and made their position with our company miserable. So walk us through.
Well, and we did that with giving people opportunities that we did not train them for.
And as entrepreneurs, we're like, wow, we'll give you opportunity and a chance to make a lot more money. Everybody wants that and we'll all win, but it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, when you're a great employee, you should have two different schools of thought on what happens with your career. It could be you have a desire and a heart to really manage other people, right? And so we put you on a management track. You have the propensity to do it. You have you have the background to do it. You have the desire to do it. And you have the personality to do it. So they can be on a management track. And then the second track should always be an individual contributor track, right? Because not everybody that needs to move up in an organization needs to manage people, because a lot of people are not built to manage others, right? They don't want to manage others. And so if we only give them the idea, like you can make more money if you manage people, there should be, at least in a company that is of some size, to have an individual contributor track so that they can keep making more money and doing something great and greater, but not have to manage, because that makes people be put in a situation where they're not ready or they're not willing, or they're just going to be bad at it.
I've never even heard of that before. If individual contributor track.
If you will share your address, a lot of my team is going to be sending you gifts this week. I have screwed this up over and over and over again for
I get it.
the last 20 years.
The other reason I know that is because I did the same thing, right? So, and corporations have just now started figuring this out. 10 years ago, everybody that got promoted into a management rank. And so now there's individual contributor, tracks. And that's really very important. And so as you're thinking about scaling and building your business, you have to think about, what about those people that really aren't built to lead people, right? And so how do we create a job or a career path for them? Because a big reason people leave small businesses is because you haven't given them a path. Right. And that doesn't mean that if you're a small enough business that you can't have accountant 1, accountant 2, accountant 3, right? Maybe it's not a path like that. But if you created that path for them to say, okay, if you do well in your current role and you don't want to manage people, then we're going to keep you in your role. We may change your title and we're going to give you the additional responsibility or additional management responsibility of, say, projects and those kind of things without people. And this is your new track, because one of the reasons people leave companies and don't retain is because they really want a path they can see, right? And you haven't given them one. And so it's really important for us to focus on that for not only the people that want to lead, and then give them great training on how to lead people, right? Send them through great training, but also for those people that don't want to lead, give them an option.
Yeah, I think sometimes for small business owners, especially if it's someone who started as a solopreneur and they start building their team, that it can be difficult to create that, like, hey, here's where we're going in the future and here's your next position, because the position hasn't been created yet. And it feels so much on the leader, like on the entrepreneur, like, well, I don't know if I promise Chad that position, like if I can lead us there or not. I see some reluctance from people I've talked to about that specifically, but I got a different question for you on the management track versus the individual contributor track. Does someone have to be a good individual contributor to land on the management track? Or do you see some people sometimes you're like, this person is not like necessarily the best, and maybe they're not ultimately task oriented. So they have leadership potential, but if you put them just on their own merit or on their own performance, like they're not going to rise very far in the company. Do you differentiate between that, or does everybody have to be a good individual contributor before they get to a management track level?
I feel like if you aren't good at doing the thing, you're not going to be very good at managing the thing.
Yeah, we see oftentimes, especially in the sales world, though, where it's like the exact opposite, where like somebody is phenomenal at they're the best salesperson, and they're like, oh my God, he's great. So if we can just get him to teach everybody else what he's doing, then, or what she's doing, then we'll be great. And they put him as sales manager, and they're awful.
Yeah,
that's why they can't get the other people to perform.
Never been put in that track, right?
Yeah.
They should have stayed in the individual contributor track.
Yeah. Which brings me to the question, as the business owner, can a business owner choose what track they want to stay on and hire out the rest? As an entrepreneur, can I say, hey, I want to be an individual contributor to this company. I don't want to manage the people. I want to go perform and pay somebody else. Is that a reasonable approach to growing your business?
Yes and no. So in the early years, when it's you and two other people, and the two other people is a part-time bookkeeper and a part-time executive assistant, no, you have to manage them, right? Because we're not having any one of those people manage them. There is a time at a critical point in a company where you have to make a decision. Am I going to be kind of the visionary leader who goes out and, does speaking engagements and does that? And I have a COO that does all of that management of people, right? But that's usually not at the very beginning of a company.